So, found an old axe head. It's maybe a little bigger than hatchet size, like a 1.5, 2 pounder. And picked up a handle at L&M. This is a 2-foot axe handle. The plan is to clean up some of this, reshape this just a little bit, sharpen it, polish it, probably try to mount it on this handle a little lower. We want this to be like a camp axe. So a little bigger than a hatchet, a little smaller than an axe, something to take camping. Maybe we'll cut a couple inches off that end, off this end, maybe 22 inches total length when we're done. And we want to do something kind of cool with the handle. Maybe put a little bit of a polish on the head too. So one of the first things I'm working on is someone has hit the back of this with a hammer or something, maybe used it as a wedge, kind of mushroom that edge over. So we're gonna clean that. We're gonna make that flat again on the back. One of the things I'd like to do, the edge here's got some icky stuff in it. We're gonna take that out, and I wouldn't mind just cutting that shape in just a little bit, just making that a little thinner, a little more widened out at the edge, and maybe clean that top up a little bit. Clean the bottom up a little bit, take file, clean the hole just so it's uniform. And we won't be doing a lot of grinding on this part. We'll probably just brush wheel that and then start sanding it to begin the polishing. So what I'm doing now is called draw filing, and where a grinder will follow waves in metal, the file is very flat, and when I draw the file, I can bring it to a very smooth and flat surface. Doesn't necessarily put a polish on it, but it gets us back to flat.
Early this morning, that's alright. I was up all night.
So we've knocked most of the rust off. A lot of big sand scratches in there from the grinder. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna file that, get that nice and smooth, work on our edges, work on getting that kind of squared up. See how that's still not square on the back, and just keep filing away. All right. So we've been working on this axe head for several hours. Did a lot of draw filing. Got all of the rusty pits out of it. You can see this side's got a lot of grinder marks in it. That's using about a 50 grit wheel. On this side, we used a 120 followed by 180. And you can kind of still see some wave in there from the grinder wheel. So I'm going to be working on trying to block that out with sandpaper. And then this side we'll take and we'll try to take those 50 grit marks out with 120 and then 180, trying to get it closer. When we get to where we feel like it's got a nice, you see how the back part's got a nice flat finish to it, then we're going to blue it. I'll do several coats of that, and then we're going to do a little bit more polishing. Let's start out with your wheel on the surface, because if you start like that, as soon as you touch, you're going to cut. I was having a hard time getting the grinder marks out because there's a lot of swirl marks from the grinder that have some wave to them. So I switched to 80 grit on the dual action sander, and I went all surfaces now. Feel very uniform, very smooth, sanded to 80. So now we're going to put a 120 on do all surfaces 120, then 180, then 220, 320, 400.
Thin line between joy and pain. It's a long, strange trip. It's all insane.
180.
Living life through the night. Thin line of a lightning strike.
Up through 180. Starting to look pretty shiny.
When the moon is tucked away, pistons pumping.
So that's 220. This one's 320. 400 grit. All right, so we tried bluing. See how that kind of turned out? Kind of a cool color, but we can see a lot of sand scratches in it. So then I tried to polish it and all the bluing came right back off. And I still see sand scratches. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna try wet sanding it with a 400 grit wet or dry paper. I'm gonna sand it wet with a sponge. Then I'm gonna go 800 grit, then 1500 grit, all with wet sanding techniques. And I hope that will get all these horizontal lines of scratching out of there. And then we'll try polishing it with some polishing compound. And then we might go back to bluing again, but I'm not sure. All right, so that's through 1500 grit. And then I did just a little bit of polishing with a metal polishing compound by hand. Looks pretty good. I think what we're gonna try doing now is back to the bluing, with just maybe just a couple coats, just to give it just a little bit darker. No, I just... All right, so we put the handle on last night. Kind of got busy working on it and forgot to take some pictures, but it was the hickory handle that we showed you in the beginning. Had to do quite a bit of sanding and filing to get it to fit, but it looks good in there. And then I just took sandpaper and really brought that width down a little bit. You can see the head has got that bluing in it. Kind of gives it a black chrome look. I'm still planning to cut probably an inch off the bottom. I also picked up a piece of leather and I'm gonna work on making a little protective sheath for the blade. I'll cut that and sew that up. I'm working on some kind of decorative artwork for the handle. So it's gonna have a couple red stripes and some darker colors. So I pulled off the masking tape. We got 2 red stripes. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take early American Minwax. We're gonna fill in that section. Then we pull off the masking tape. Then we do the whole thing in tung oil over top. All right. So we'll pull the masking tape off now. That's the stain and the paint. And the next thing we're gonna do is do the whole thing with tung oil. Probably 2 coats of that. All right, so today made this little leather blade protector. Actually sewed that. I bought this little kit on Amazon. Sewed the leather up with wax thread and then put a little snap on there. So we got a blade holder or cover. Here's the axe. And all finished up. First test with the new axe.